So we're talking about the geography, the topography, the climate of Israel, which is very much the same today as it was in Jesus' day. We already talked about kind of the geography of it, and so now we're going to talk about the climate. Israel's climate is best described as variable. Extreme differences in altitude in such a small country guarantee widely varying temperatures. When snow is falling in Jerusalem, tourists might be basking under the sun in 90-degree temperatures at the Dead Sea, just not very far away from Jerusalem. Generally speaking, the country has two seasons, warm, dry summers and mild, wet winters. The rainy season lasts from November through March. The average temperature in Jerusalem ranges from 50 degrees in January to 85 degrees in August. Galilee is pleasant in the summer, whereas the Dead Sea is a scorching 100 to 110 degrees during that season. Land divisions. Palestine comprises of three major areas: Judea, Samaria, and Galilee. And that's going south to north. Galilee is the more northernmost area, and then there's Samaria in between, and then Judea is in the south. At least those were the delineations during Jesus' day. Other surrounding areas that Jesus visited during his earthly ministry include Perea, Decapolis, and Bashan. Widespread ministry. The Gospels mention about 21 cities that Jesus visited or mentioned by name. Study the map to learn the locations of those cities. We're not going to do that right now. So following is a list of verses that record parts of Christ's itinerary, schedule of activities. Read each verse and then try to visualize Christ making the trip by donkey or on foot. Record details about geography of each place and mileage. So we're going to do this together. So take out your Bibles, please, and we'll read some together. No. Oh, you've already done it. So do we just have to? Okay. Why didn't I do that with MicroStar? Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, that's good. So then let's just answer these. I do still want to read because it'll be fresher in our minds. So we'll read. Okay, who would be willing to read John 4:1-5? John 4:1-5, and speak up because the people at home want to hear you. Go ahead.
Now, when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, did not baptize, but only his disciples. He left Judea and departed again for Galilee. He had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph.
So Jesus goes through Samaria. He's in Judea, so he's in the south of Israel, and he has to go through Samaria. Now, he didn't have to; he chose to. This is the introduction to his meeting with the woman at the well. He chose to do that. In fact, some Jews went around Samaria and would refuse to walk through. They went the long way. But the Bible says he had to. I don't think he had to physically. I think he had to spiritually go through Samaria. So he goes from Judea to Galilee through Samaria. He goes through Samaria to get to Galilee. And that's about 50 miles through hills. That's an estimation, not an exact amount. And now let's look at John 4:43-46. And who wants to read 43-46? Go ahead, thank you.
After the 2 days he departed from Galilee. For Jesus himself had testified that a prophet has no honor in his own hometown. So when he came to Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him, having seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the feast, for they too had gone to the feast. So he came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And at Capernaum there was an official whose son was ill.
Okay, great. So where is he at the beginning of this passage?
Galilee.
He's, well, he started in Samaria. He was in Samaria before this. But then, yeah, you're right. He went to Galilee, Cana in Galilee. And that's approximately 40 miles through hills and coastal plains. What?
How long does that take to walk?
Long time. That was about the only way you were going to get anywhere. I mean, if you were wealthy enough, you might have a donkey. But yeah, largely people walked everywhere. When I go to Zambia, that's true. That the only car is our van that we rent. That's it. They walk everywhere. They go. In fact, in one of the things we do in Zambia, and by we I mean my church, is we train rural pastors, and they and their wives and often their children walk for days to get to Serengeti, and that was what it was like for Jesus. Okay, so John 4:54 to 5:1. Who wants to write next thing?
This was the second time that Jesus come from Judea to Galilee. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem.
Yeah, does anybody remember what I told you about those words after this? Nobody remembers? There's been a period of time between chapter 4 and chapter 5. So we don't know how long. It says this was now the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. So he's in Galilee in 54, but it says after this, and we don't know how long he stayed in Galilee, but there's a gap of time. And then it says that there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. So he starts out in Galilee in verse 54, but he goes to Jerusalem. That's about 90 miles. That's probably how far. I don't know. Probably about to west of Lincoln, for sure. But York, maybe to York, that would be about 90 miles. Imagine walking that. You can't do it on the interstate because you can't walk on the interstate. So why did the Bible say that Jesus went up to Jerusalem when he actually traveled south? So he's in Galilee. Galilee is in the north. Then you've got Samaria, and then down in the south you have Judea. And for us, we usually say, like if I say I'm going to see my sister in Texas, I'm going down to Texas. If I'm going to see my roommates in Minnesota, I say I'm going up to Minnesota. But he's going south, and it says there he's going up to Jerusalem. Why? And I know this is just your best guess, probably. Are you going to say something, Aaron? Yeah, Jerusalem is higher in elevation, and that is one reason why they say you go up to Jerusalem, because it is higher in elevation than most of the rest of Israel. Not all of the rest of Israel, but most of the rest of Israel. So that's one reason. But the other reason is that Jerusalem was the sacred city. Jerusalem was the most important city. And so to honor that, they would say you go up to Jerusalem. So no matter where you're coming from, if you go to Jerusalem, you are always going up to Jerusalem, never going down to Jerusalem. Yeah, so both because it's in higher elevation and also because it's the holy city. Okay, John 10:40. Let's move there. I would like to. Oh, yeah, just 10. Maybe you want to read it? Thank you, Natalie.
He went again across the Jordan to the place where John had been baptizing at first, there he remained.
Yeah, which just means he stayed there a while. He didn't leave right away. So yeah, he went across the Jordan. That means that he went from the west bank of the Jordan to the east bank of the Jordan. And that was the place. We don't know exactly where John baptized, but we know the kind of area it was. And so he went from Jerusalem. Then he went beyond the Jordan, the other side of the Jordan, probably about 20 miles through hills and the Jordan Valley. The next one is really long, so I'm going to read that for you. Follow along with me, and I will. I'll read it. We already did 10:40, but we'll go on from there. So he went away again across the Jordan to the place where John had been baptizing at first, and there he remained. And many came to him, and they said, John did no sign. He didn't perform any miracles, is what that means. But everything that John said about this man was true, and many believed in him, meaning Jesus there. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him, meaning sent to Jesus, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. And when Jesus heard it, he said, This illness will not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Does that make sense? If somebody comes in here and says, one of your kids was just in an accident and is going to the hospital, I'm sorry, I'm done with this lesson. I am leaving, right? But it says he stayed 2 more days and waited to go to Lazarus. Interesting, huh? We'll talk about it when we get there, why he waited. So then he stayed after this. No. Where? He stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, Let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you are going there again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day when it's light outside? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the light, he walks in the night, he stumbles, but because the light is not in him. After saying these things, he said to them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover. Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought he meant taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died. So So where, or was I supposed to go through 17? Um, now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest and sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died. And for your sake, I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go, so we may die with him. Now, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off. This is obviously a famous story about Lazarus, but we're not talking about the story yet. So he was on the other side of the Jordan, on the west bank of the Jordan, and he went to Bethany. Bethany was very near Jerusalem. Just not, you could, it was an easy walk from Bethany to Jerusalem. About 18 miles from the other side of the Jordan to Bethany. And then the last one is John 11:54. Who would like to read that? Thank you, Aaron.
There to a town called Bethel, and there he stayed with his disciples.
Yeah, so it wasn't time for Jesus to be arrested and crucified, so he had to be careful not to get too close to Jerusalem. So he leaves Bethany, that was near Jerusalem, and he goes to Ephraim, and that's about 25 miles through hills. And then the last thing we'll talk about for today is the rulers of Palestine in that day. So I already told you that Israel was broken up into areas. There was Judea to the south, there was Samaria in the middle, and there was Galilee in the north. Perea was just off to the side of Galilee, and then Iturea and Trachonitis was northeast of that. You'll see a map, and that'll make more sense to you. So the rulers in the time of Jesus, some were Jewish rulers, some were Roman rulers. So the Herods were appointed by the Romans, but they were Jews. So Herod the Great, you know about, he was Herod for a long time. He was Herod when Jesus was born. And then Archelaus was from 4 BC to AD 6. And then the procurators were Roman. Like Pilate was the procurator, right? So they were Roman leaders. So Pontius Pilate was one of them. Copianus, Ambivus, Rufus, Gratus were all procurators. And then in Galilee and Perea, up to the north, the Herod was Herod Antipas from 4 BC to AD 39. So Herod Antipas was the one who killed John the Baptist, and also he would have known about Jesus because he was the Herod during Jesus' ministry. And then Iturea and Trachonitis, also northeast of the Sea of Galilee, was ruled by Philip from 4 BC to AD 34. So during Jesus' lifetime, these were the leaders of Palestine. We're going to stop there, and we're done for today, and you are welcome to work on something else or chat.